Imagine this. You're 22 years old, standing in your family's modest home in Punjab or a bustling neighborhood in Lagos. Your father has just done something unthinkable. He's sold a huge area of ancestral farmland, land that's been in your family for generations, watered by the sweat of your grandparents. The money? It goes straight to a slick consultancy firm tucked into a strip mall 3 towns over. They hand you glossy brochures, pristine campuses with ivy-covered buildings that look like Hogwarts, smiling students on manic lawns, promises of world-class education in Canada, Australia, or the UK. Study business management for 2 years, they say, with practiced smiles. Get your degree, then a work permit, permanent residency, and soon you'll sponsor your whole family to join you in paradise. It feels like winning the lottery. The golden ticket. You hug your parents goodbye, tears mixing with excitement. You pack your life into 2 battered suitcases, clothes, a few family photos, dreams heavier than anything you can carry. The flight is long, nerves jangling. You land at Pearson in Toronto, or Heathrow in London, or Melbourne Airport. Heart pounding, you step into what you've been told is the gateway to a better life. But reality hits like cold water. Your university isn't a grand campus. It's a single fluorescent lit room above a Domino's pizza in a grim suburban industrial park. Your classes? A handful of students staring at PowerPoint slides recycled from who knows where. Your student housing? A thin mattress on the floor of ABR amp basement, shared with 6 or 7 other guys, all coughing through the night. Rent, $800 month, more than your parents make back home in 2 months. You work midnight shifts at ABR as station or delivering food just to eat. Or the last decade, this was the hidden truth behind the international student boom. Millions chased the same dream. Glossy promises turned into a grind of survival. Governments loved the GDP bump. Universities gorged on tuition fees, often 3 to 4 times what locals paid. Landlords turned basements into gold mines. Consultancies raked in commissions. Everyone profited, everyone except the students. You weren't really there for the education. You were there for the visa, the post-graduation work, permit, the faint hope of permanent residency, the chance to lift your entire family out of poverty. But in 2024 and 2025, the music stopped. The Western world woke up with a pounding hangover. Housing crises exploded into public outrage. Politicians faced voters furious at skyrocketing rents and strained services. Borders that had been flung open for economic gain suddenly slammed shut. Caps crashed down, rules tightened overnight. The golden ticket, revoked for hundreds of thousands. What was sold as a pathway to paradise became a trap. Dreams deferred, families bankrupted, futures uncertain. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on the end of an era, the great international student gold rush that enriched the West for a decade, and the brutal correction now unfolding in real time. We'll break down the new iron walls rising in Canada, Australia, the UK, and the United States, the economic catastrophe brewing for universities, landlords, and entire suburbs built on student rent, the reverse brain drain as talent flows to new destinations, and the rise of the East quietly positioning itself as the new center of global education. If you're a student holding a rejection letter right now, a parent who sold land for a dream that vanished, or just someone watching the world change, this is for you. The rules have changed forever. Welcome to the end of the golden ticket. Rewind to the early 2010s. The world was still shaking off the dust of the global financial crisis. Western economies needed growth. Any growth. Governments were desperate for revenue. That didn't require raising taxes on voters. Universities were bleeding cash after years of underfunding. Landlords in sleepy suburbs watched house prices stagnate. And then someone discovered a miracle cure: international students. It wasn't presented that way, of course. It was sold as global education, cultural exchange, building the leaders of tomorrow. But beneath the marketing, it was pure economics, a gold rush disguised as academia. Here's how it worked. International students paid full freight, often 3 to 4 times what domestic students paid. A Canadian domestic student might pay $7,000 a year in tuition. An international student at the same public college could be charged $25,000 to $40,000. Universities loved it. Governments loved it even more because these students brought spending power, rent, food, phones, transit, clothes. Every dollar spent rippled through the economy. In Canada, the sector ballooned into a $22.25 billion annual industry by 2023. Bigger than lumber, bigger than auto parts. In Australia, international education became the country's third largest export, worth over $40 billion at its peak. The UK raked in £41.9 billion from international tuition and living expenses in recent years. Even the US, traditionally more selective, saw international enrollment surge past 1.1 million. But the real magic wasn't the tuition alone. It was the immigration pathway. Many countries offered post-graduation work permits, 1 to 3 years of open work rights after completing a degree. In Canada, the PGWP became legendary. Finish almost any program, even a 1-year diploma from a strip mall college, work full-time, accumulate points, and apply for permanent residency. Australia had similar pathways. The UK introduced the graduate route in 2021. 2 years, 3-4 PhDs to stay and work without employer sponsorship. 4 Millions of young people in India, Nigeria, China, Nepal, Pakistan, and beyond. This wasn't just education. It was the most reliable route out of underemployment, low wages, and limited opportunities at home. Families mortgaged homes. Parents sold land. Students took on debt. Consultancy agencies sprang up like mushrooms after rain, charging $5,000 to $20,000 to package applications. Gents coached students on what to say at visa interviews. I'm coming purely for education. FISA. I definitely plan to return home. Everyone knew the script. Everyone played along. Numbers exploded. Anada went from approximately 300,000 international study permit holders in 2013 to over 1 million by 2023, more than the entire population of cities like Calgary or Ottawa added in a decade. Australia's net migration hit over 500,000 in a single year, largely driven by students transitioning to work visas. The UK issued over 498,000 student visas in the year ending June 2023 alone. Cities like Toronto, Melbourne, and London were transformed. Suburbs like Rampton, Surrey, and Parramatta became majority South Asian student enclaves almost overnight. Landlords subdivided houses into illegal suites. Basements became dorms, 6, 8, 10 students per home. Rents doubled, tripled. Investors bought properties purely for student cash low. Small businesses thrived on captive customers who needed cheap phones, halal groceries, and $12 haircuts. Universities, especially second and third tier ones, built entire business models around this revenue. Domestic tuition was frozen or subsidized for political reasons, but international fees had no ceiling. The cash cross-subsidized research, shiny new buildings, and kept domestic EEs artificially low T was a perfect bubble. Students tolerated exploitative conditions because the prize, permanent residency, in a wealthy, stable country was worth it. Governments turned a blind eye because the GDP numbers looked fantastic. Universities expanded aggressively, often through dubious private partnerships. And voters didn't complain until they did. By 2023, the cracks were impossible to ignore. Housing affordability collapsed. Food banks in Canada reported international students lining up. Healthcare wait times grew. Public transport groaned. Politicians who once celebrated diversity now faced angry constituents asking why their kids couldn't afford rent. The gold rush had enriched institutions and investors, but it had also created a massive, vulnerable underclass living on the edge. And then, in 2024 and 2025, the music stopped. The same governments that opened the floodgates suddenly panicked. Caps were introduced. Rules tightened. Pathways closed. What was built as a dream factory became a machine in reverse, spitting out disappointment, debt, and broken promises. The era of easy migration disguised as education was over. If the international student boom was a global gold rush, Canada was the Wild West, lawless, lucrative and ultimately unsustainable. For years, immigration experts called it exactly that, the easiest backdoor to permanent residency on the planet. If you could pay the tuition and fog a mirror, you were in. Between 2013 and 2023, the number of international study permit holders exploded from around 300,000 to over 1.07 million. That's an increase of more than 250% in a single decade, equivalent to adding the entire population of San Francisco twice over to a country that hadn't built meaningful new housing since the Mulroney era. The real engine wasn't the prestigious universities like Toronto, McGill or UBC. Those institutions took high-caliber students and charged premium fees. The real story, the one that earned the boom into a bubble, was the rise of the strip mall colleges and public-private partnerships. Here's how the machine worked. Public colleges in Ontario and British Columbia, starved of funding after years of frozen domestic tuition, discovered a loophole. The federal government allowed them to partner with private career colleges. A reputable public institution, say in a small town hours from Toronto, would license its curriculum to a private operator in Brampton, Scarborough or Surrey. The private college would set up shop in a plaza next to a money mart and a shawarma joint, recruit thousands of students from India, Nigeria and the Philippines, and charge $15,000 to $40,000 a year. Students rarely, if ever, saw the main campus. Classes were held in rented office space with folding chairs and flickering fluorescent lights. The programs? Often 1 or 2 year diplomas in general arts and science, hospitality management or business, credentials designed not for learning but for eligibility. And the prize? The post-graduation work permit, PGWP. Finish the program and you could work full-time in Canada for up to 3 years, rack up a year of skilled work experience, and you qualified for express entry permanent residency through the Canadian Experience class. It was marketed openly as immigration, not education. Agents in Punjab and Gujarat called it the Canada Package. By 2023, institutions like Conestoga College, Seneca and Centennial had international students, making up 70 to 90% of enrollment growth. Some private partners were issuing tens of thousands of offers a year. The money was obscene. Colleges built gleaming new buildings. Presidents earned bonuses. Recruiters flew business class to India handing out acceptance letters like candy. Then the housing market broke, spectacularly. Cities like Brampton and Surrey became ground zero. Rents doubled in 5 years. Basements were carved into illegal UITs housing 8, 10, 12 students. Hotbedding became a grim reality. Rent a bed in 8-hour shifts. You finish your night shift at Tim Hortons, crawl into a warm bed someone just vacated, sleep till noon, then hand it over. Food bank usage among international students skyrocketed. Hospitals reported overcrowding. Commuters raged at packed buses and trains. Public opinion flipped. What was once celebrated as diversity became scapegoated as the root of the housing crisis. Politicians who had courted the sector now ran from it. Enter Mark Miller, Canada's immigration minister, the man who became the grim reaper of the international education industry. In January 2024, the hammer dropped. A 2-year cap on new study permits, slashing approvals by 35% to about 606,000 for 2024. But that was just the opening act. In late 2024, Miller announced the 2025 cap would be hardened further, approximately 437,000 new permits. Then, as 2025 draws to a close, reports confirmed the government is preparing an even deeper cut for 2026, potentially as low as 155 new study permits, a 75% collapse from the 2023 peak. The killer detail? The provincial attestation letter PAL system. No longer can you apply directly to the federal government. Every application now requires a letter from the province confirming a spot in their quota. And provinces, under massive pressure, have allocated almost 0 letters to private colleges and public-private partnership programs. The strip mall pipeline has been effectively shut off overnight. The PGWP rules were gutted too. Graduates from most private college programs after November 2024 are no longer eligible for the work permit. Spousal open work permits for undergrad and college students? Gone. Only masters and PhD students keep family privileges. Fallout is apocalyptic. Colleges that built empires on international revenue are staring at hundreds of millions in deficits. Conestoga, once the poster child with campuses expanding like wildfire, has laid off staff and frozen hiring. Seneca and Centennial are slashing programs. Small private colleges are shuttering entirely. Recruitment agents in India and Africa are out of business. And the students already here? Many are trapped. They paid fortunes, sold family assets, only to find the goalposts moved. Some face deportation risks if they can't transfer to qualifying programs. Others work multiple jobs just to survive while hoping for policy mercy. Canada's message is now crystal clear: we're closed for business unless you're pursuing a master's, PhD, or in a high-demand field at a legitimate university. Wild West has a sheriff, and he's not taking bribes anymore. The era of the diploma mill to PR pipeline is dead, and the economic bloodbath in suburbs built bar. Student rent is only beginning. Canada was the Wild West of the international student boom. Australia was the classic gold bar. Glittering promises, frantic digging, and a whole lot of people left holding worthless claims. The vein ran dry. Its peak international education was Australia's third largest export, worth over $40 billion a year. More than resources in some years. Universities expanded aggressively, private colleges multiplied like rabbits, and net migration soared past 500,000 in a single year, numbers that even pro-immigration Australians choke on their flat whites. Beneath the glossy marketing lay a shadow system that made Canada's strip mall colleges almost respectable. Ghost colleges Here's how it worked. You arrive on a legitimate student visa tied to a prestigious university, say the University of Whitney or Melbourne. You pay the hefty first semester fees, often $20,000 to $30,000, just to eat your foot in the door and pass the genuine temporary Trant check. But 3 weeks in, you quietly transfer to a cheap vocational education and training VET provider, a private college operating out of a nondescript office building in Parramatta or the Melbourne CBD. These ghost colleges earned their name for a reason. Classes were optional. Sometimes they barely existed. Attendance? A wink and a nod. The college would mark you present, issue the paperwork, and keep your visa valid for a price. You, meanwhile, worked full-time, driving, Uber, pulling barista shifts, stacking shelves at Coles, or laboring on construction sites. Many students recouped their tuition within months through under-the-table cash jobs. It was pay-to-stay immigration wearing the thinnest possible academic disguise. The government knew, everyone knew, but the economic incentives were irresistible. Universities cross-subsidized research with international fees. Private providers paid massive commissions to agents in India, Nepal, Pakistan, and the Philippines. Cities like Melbourne and Sydney thrived on the spending of hundreds of thousands of young workers. Then the housing crisis hit, followed by wage stagnation complaints, and finally the 2023 migration surge that broke the camel's back. Public sentiment soured fast. Politicians who once boasted about jobs and growth now faced voters furious about packed trains and unaffordable rents. Enter the Albanese government's response, a sledgehammer labelled the Genuine Student test. Introduced in March 2024, the GS test replaced the old Genuine Temporary Entrant rule with far broader discretionary powers. Immigration officers could now reject applications if the course didn't make sense for the applicant's background. A 32-year-old mechanical engineer from Nepal applying for a Certificate 3 in commercial cookery? Hard no. A 28-year-old with a bachelor's degree suddenly pursuing a low-level hospitality diploma? Rejected. Significant gaps in study history? Cheaper course than industry standard? Suspicious agent involvement? All red flags, rejection rates exploded. For key source countries like India, Nepal, and Pakistan, refusal rates in some vocational sectors shot past 30 to 40% almost overnight. The ghost colleges were starved of new students. The government didn't stop there. They jacked up the student visa application fee from $710 to $1,600 in mid-2024, and then pushed it higher still to $2,000 by late 2025. Non-refundable. Get rejected? The Australian government keeps your money. It's a tax on ambition, pure and simple. Then came the caps. For 2025, a national planning level of 270,000 new international student commencements, split between universities and vocational providers. Universities got the lion's share, vet providers were brutally curtailed. By late 2025, the government signalled a slight easing for 2026, around 295,000, but only because universities were screaming about lost revenue. The damage to the ghost system was permanent. The message from Canberra couldn't be clearer. We want rich, high-achieving students who attend group of 8 universities, pay $50,000 plus a year, and go home when they're done. We do not want low-skilled workers using education as a visa loophole. The fallout is brutal. Private vet colleges are collapsing. Enrollments in some have dropped 70 to 80%. Agents in South Asia are out of work. Universities, despite their protected quotas, are warning of research cuts as international revenue shrinks. Landlords in student-heavy suburbs like Clayton and Footscray are seeing vacancies climb and rents soften for the first time in years. For the student in Mumbai or Kathmandu who spent years saving, the Australian dream just became twice as expensive and 10 times riskier. The ghost colleges are being exercised, one rejection stamp at a time. If Australia burned the ghost colleges and Canada shot the Wild West sheriff into overdrive, the United Kingdom chose a quieter but equally devastating weapon, cutting off the lifeboats that kept entire families afloat. For years, the UK had a killer feature that set it apart from Canada, Australia, or the US. Dependence while other countries made, bringing a spouse or children a bureaucratic nightmare. The UK was remarkably open. Pursue a 1-year master's degree? Bring your partner and kids. Your spouse could work full-time, no restrictions. For mature students from Nigeria, India, Ghana, and Pakistan, often in their late 20s or 30s, with families. This wasn't just education. It was a family investment strategy. One partner studies, the other works a decent job to cover costs and send money home. After graduation, the 2-year graduate route visa, 3 for PhDs, gave breathing room to find killed work and transition to a work visa. It was expensive. Tuition often £15,000 to £30,000 a year, but the maths worked. Hundreds of thousands bet their futures on it. In January 2024, the Conservative government, in its final desperate months, slammed door shut. International students on taught postgraduate courses could no longer bring dependents. Only ECERC-based masters and PhDs kept the privilege. The impact was immediate and brutal. Following the ban, dependent visas plummeted by over 85% from nearly 150,000 to 20,000. New Labour government, elected in July 2024, was expected to soften the blow. Instead, doubled down. May 2025, the long-awaited immigration white paper delivered 2 body blows. RST, the graduate route, once the crown jewel of post-study work rights, was slashed from 2 months to just 18 months, effective from the 2027 intake. 6 months might sound minor, but it's the difference between having time to network, gain experience, and secure a sponsor for a skilled worker visa, and scrambling to leave the moment your lease ends. Employers hate short timelines. Graduates now have less runway to prove themselves. Second, and far more explosive, the proposed international student levy. Universities already rely on international fees to survive. Domestic tuition is capped at £9,250, below the cost of teaching most students. International students pay full freight, subsidizing everything from labs to lecturers' salaries. Now the government wants to tax those fees directly, an estimated £925 per international student per year from 2028, potentially rising. It's a raid on the very revenue stream keeping the sector afloat. Vice-chancellors are in full panic mode. According to the Office for Students of S, by the end of the 2025-26 academic year, up to 75% per F English higher education institutions could be running deficits. We're not talking about Oxford Borough, R Cambridge with billion-pound endowments. We're talking about mid-tier universities, Coventry, Sheffield Hallam, Teesside, Bedfordshire, places that expanded borough aggressively on international revenue. S of late 2025, over 24 providers are officially flagged as at risk of insolvency by regulators. That's not theoretical. Imagine paying £18,000 in tuition, moving your life across the world and halfway through your degree, your university declares bankruptcy. Courses suspended. Your qualifications in limbo. No refund. It's no longer dystopian fiction. It's a real and growing risk in written. Universities are already slashing staff, merging departments and cutting less profitable courses. RTS, humanities and social sciences are first on the chopping block. Some institutions are penly warning they may not survive without emergency government support. The tragedy is that the UK once had a balanced, high-quality system. It attracted genuine NT, with world-class universities and a relatively generous post-study offer, but aggressive recruitment, often through dubious agents promising guaranteed pathways, flooded the system. Low-quality providers and satellite colleges popped up, echoing Canada's private partnerships. Now the correction is brutal. Enrollments from key markets like Nigeria and India have cratered. Indian student numbers dropped over 40% in some postgraduate programs. Nigerian applications collapsed even harder after the dependent ban. Universities that budgeted for 2024 to 2025 cohorts based on 2023 highs are staring at empty lecture halls. The financial death spiral is in motion. Fewer students, less revenue, program cuts and staff losses, lower rankings and reputation, even fewer students. Labour insists the changes target low-quality courses and reduce net migration. But the blunt instrument is hitting genuine institutions hardest. The UK's message to the world is clear. Come if you're brilliant, rich, and planning to leave soon. Family migration through education, over. Generous post-study work, shortened, easy. Subsidies for domestic students, ending. Britain built a golden goose with international fees. Now it's strangling it, and risking the collapse of large parts of its higher education sector in the process. And now we reach the final boss of the international student world, the United States. For years, the US played a different game. It never opened the floodgates like Canada or Australia. No easy post-study work permits leading straight to permanent residency. No unlimited dependent rights. The F1 student visa was always stricter, more expensive, and more selective. Yet it remained the ultimate prize. The Ivy League, Stanford, MIT, the American dream in academic form. When Canada, the UK, and Australia started tightening in 2024, many students pivoted south. Applications surged. Rejection rates were high, but the prestige was worth the gamble. Then came November 2025. Donald Trump won a second term. And the welcome mat was not just pulled, it was burned. Trump too wasted no time. On December 20th, 2025, just days ago, the White House announced an immediate expansion of travel restrictions, dubbed Travel Ban 2. Effective January 1st, 2026. Nationals from nearly 40 countries face partial or full suspensions on all visa categories, including student F1 visas. The list isn't limited to adversarial nations. It includes major student-sending countries like Nigeria, Ghana, Malawi, and others flagged for security vetting deficiencies or high overstay rates. Tens of thousands of accepted students from these nations woke up to find their visa, interviews cancelled and dreams on ice, but the restrictions go far beyond the ban list. F1 visa rejection rates were already climbing. In the 2023 to 2024 academic year, overall denials hit 41%, the highest in over a decade. For applicants from sub-Saharan Africa, rates hovered between 50 to 60%. Consular officers, emboldened by the new administration, are applying even tougher scrutiny, questioning intent to return home, financial proof, and academic fit with microscopic detail. Then there's the proposed end to duration of status for decades. F1 students were admitted for duration of status. Stay as long as you're enrolled full-time and making progress. No fixed end date. In August 2025, the Department of Homeland Security, DHS, revived a Trump-era rule to cap student visas at fixed terms, maximum 4 years, with extensions required for longer programs. Need 5 years for a PhD? Oh bad. Reapply, pay new fees and face potential rejection. Every extension means another EVIS fee, another I-20, another interview. The optional practical training OPTI program, allowing 12 months of work after graduation 36 for STEM, is under fire. Reports from late 2025 indicate the administration is reviewing restrictions, potentially shortening STEM extensions or adding employer reporting burdens. The H-1B visa, the primary bridge to long-term work, faces even darker clouds. The lottery system is likely to be tightened, caps lowered, and wage requirements hiked. Social media etting, already used in some cases, is expanding. Post anything perceived as anti-American, ISA denied. The message from Washington is unmistakable. America First extends to campuses. Don't want temporary visitors who might stay. We want only the absolute best. And even you're on a short leash. Universities are bracing for impact. While elite institutions like Harvard and NYU will weather the storm, they always do, public universities and less selective private ones that ramped up international recruitment are panicking. Revenue drops. Diversity in STEM programs, fueled by Indian and Chinese graduates, could plummet. Or students from affected countries, the US dream just became a fortress with higher walls, moats, and guards instructed to shoot first. The United States never joined the full gold rush. But under Trump too, it's building its own attain around higher education. The other Anglosphere countries close doors, America is bricking them up. Borders are closing. Politicians are high-fiving over taking back control. Caps are in place, rejection rates are soaring, and the flow of international students is slowing to a trickle. But here's what no one in the press conferences wants to talk about. The morning after. For over a decade, international students weren't just students. They were an economic steroid, shot straight into the veins of Western economies. In Canada, the sector pumped more than $20 to $25 billion into GDP every year. More than lumber, wheat, or auto parts. In Australia, it was a $40 plus billion export. In the UK, international tuition and living expenses contributed over £40 billion annually. Billions more flowed through rent, groceries, transit, and fast food. Now pull that plug overnight. The hangover is going to be brutal. Start with housing, the most visible casualty. Take the classic Brampton landlord. He bought a 3-bedroom, semi-detached house in 2018, threw $50,000 into a basement renovation, often illegal, and rented it to 6 or 7 international students at $500 to $600 a head. Cash flow positive from day one. He drove a G-Wagon, vacationed in Dubai, and bought 2 more properties on the same model. Suburbs, like Brampton, Surrey, Parramatta, and Outer Melbourne, were full of these mini-empires, with caps slashing new arrivals by 50 to 75%. That demand is evaporating. Vacancy rates in student-heavy areas are already climbing. In Brampton, listings that used to vanish in hours now sit for weeks. Rents are softening for the first time in years. Panic selling has begun. Investors, who over-leveraged on student cash flow, are underwater. When they rush for the exit, they drag the entire local housing market down with them. We're not just talking about a few slumlords. Entire suburbs were built on this model. Property values inflated by student demand could correct hard, 10 to 20 drops in some pockets aren't. Out of tea? He questioned. Next, the strip mall apocalypse. Who kept those plazas alive? International students buying $10 SIM cards, late night, shawarma, used Civics, and budget haircuts. They were a captive consumer base, hundreds of thousands strong, spending every dollar they earned. Small businesses in college towns and ethnic enclaves saw 30 to 50% of revenue from students. Without them, police signs are sprouting like weeds. Phone repair shops, driving schools, money transfer outlets, and budget grocery stores are facing existential threats. Then there's the tuition bomb, the one locals cheering good riddance will feel most directly. Why was domestic tuition so low or frozen for so long? Because international students were subsidizing it. They paid 3 to 4 times the rate so citizens could pay 1 times. In Canada, public colleges used international fees to keep domestic programs afloat. In the UK, uncapped international tuition covered the gap left by the £9,250 domestic fee cap. Same in Australia. With that revenue vanishing, universities and colleges have 2 choices: cut programs or raise domestic fees. Arts, humanities, and less profitable courses are already being axed. Staff layoffs are rolling in, and mark my words, by 2027, domestic tuition in Canada, the UK, and parts of Australia will rise significantly. The bill for the party is coming due, and locals will pay it. The broader economy isn't immune. Fewer students mean fewer entry-level workers in hospitality, retail, and gig jobs. Construction in some cities slows without cheap labor. Tax revenue from student spending drops. The stimulus package is gone. Governments thought they were solving a housing crisis. What they've done is trigger a multi-year economic correction in the very sectors that boomed on international students. The gold rush enriched institutions, investors, and governments for a decade. The doors to the tradit, all Big Four, Canada, Australia, the UK, and the US, are slamming shut. Caps, bans, rejections, and fixed-term visas have turned what was a highway into a maze of dead ends. But here's the thing. Ambition doesn't vanish just because one path closes. Millions of young people still want world-class education, work experience abroad, and a shot at a better life. Water always finds a crack. The great international student flow isn't ending, it's redirecting. We're witnessing a reverse brain drain as talent that once defaulted to the Anglosphere now looks elsewhere. First up, Germany quietly laughing all the way to the bank. Germany never joined the tuition gold rush. Public universities remain essentially tuition-free, even for international students. You pay a small administrative fee, a few €100 per semester, and get access to world-class engineering, science, and research programs. No €40,000 bills. In 2025, Germany launched an aggressive push for Indian talent specifically, plus the Chancenkarte, Opportunity Card, a points-based job seeker visa that doesn't require a prior offer. They need 400,000 immigrants a year to offset an aging workforce and shrinking population. While Canada deports and the US builds walls, Germany is rolling out the welcome mat. Applications from India and Africa are surging. Then there's East Asia stepping into the demographic void. Japan and South Korea are staring down a cliff. Birth rates below 1, workforces shrinking fast. Japan recently reaffirmed its target of 400,000 international students by 2033, simplifying visas, expanding English-taught programs, and actively recruiting graduates to stay. Companies like Toyota and Samsung are desperate for young talent. Culture shock is real, language barriers, rigid hierarchies, but the trade-off is clear. Stable job offers versus deportation risk in Canada. South Korea is following suit. Pushing scholarships and post-study work rights in fields like semiconductors and biotech. Another sleeper trend, transnational education, TNE. Why move across the world and pay London rents when you can get a genuine University of London or University of Nottingham degree in Malaysia, Dubai, or Egypt? Western universities, terrified of losing revenue, are expanding satellite campuses and branch partnerships at breakneck speed. The degree is identical, the credential respected, but migration doesn't happen. The West keeps the tuition money, while offloading the housing and labor pressure. Students stay closer to home, costs plummet, and families stay intact. For the smart and adaptable, these alternatives aren't second best, they're smarter bets. Germany offers quality without debt. Japan and Korea offer jobs in booming industries. TNE offers prestige without the visa lottery. The Anglosphere spent a decade hoovering up global talent. Now it's pushing that talent away, and the rest of the world is ready to catch it. The reverse brain drain is just getting started. While the West builds walls, the East is quietly laying out bridges and rewriting the map of global education. For decades, the flow of talent was one way, from developing nations to the Anglosphere. Young people in India, Africa, Southeast Asia, and beyond dreamed of Toronto, Melbourne, London, or Boston. The West held the monopoly on prestige degrees, English instruction, and migration pathways. But as caps slam down and rejection letters pile up, that monopoly is cracking. The great international student boom didn't end, it migrated, and the new centers of gravity are rising fast. In Asia, China is playing the longest game of all. You might still think of China as the world's largest exporter of students. And yes, hundreds of thousands still head west. But Beijing has pivoted hard. The study in China initiative is aggressively targeting the global south, Pakistan, Thailand, Indonesia, African nations, with full scholarships, English-taught programs in medicine, engineering, and business, and something the West never offered: a direct pipeline into massive infrastructure projects. Study engineering in Shanghai, graduate debt-free, and walk into a job on the Belt and Road in your home country, or stay in China's booming tech sector. For students who once couldn't afford Sydney's $50,000 tuition, China is offering prestige, safety, and opportunity without the visa lottery. Then there are the Asian tigers reclaiming their place. Malaysia and Vietnam are positioning themselves as the new education hubs of ASEAN. Kuala Lumpur is already home to branch campuses of top UK universities, Nottingham, Heriot-Watt, Reading, offering identical degrees at a fraction of the cost. Living expenses, a quarter of London's. No deportation risk, booming regional economy. Why gamble on Canada when you can study in a modern city, network across Southeast Asia, and graduate into a job market? Hungry for talent? Vietnam is following fast, courting Western universities and building its own international programs. The pitch is simple: same quality, lower risk, closer to home. And then there's the sleeping giant waking up: India. India has been bleeding foreign exchange for decades, hundreds of billions spent on Western tuition. The government finally said enough. Their new strategy, internationalization at home, invite the world's best universities to set up full campuses inside India. Deakin University from Australia opened in Gift City, Gujarat in 2024, offering genuine Australian degrees on Indian soil. The University of Wollongong followed. UK giants like Southampton and Strathclyde are in advanced talks for 2026 openings. More are coming. The message to India's middle class has flipped. It used T or B, go west to succeed. Now it's bring the West here and keep the money, the talent, and the family together. Students get a globally recognized degree, pay local costs, live at home or nearby, and graduate into India's own tech and finance boom. No visa stress, no basement housing, no sold farmland. This isn't just about saving money, it's about power shifting. The West is about to lose its stranglehold on global talent. Once these hubs mature, the prestige gap narrows. Why pay $100,000 and risk rejection for a UK degree when you can get an equivalent or better experience closer to home? The international student boom didn't die. It moved east, so where does this leave you? If you're a student staring at brochures right now, or a parent weighing whether to sell land, the playbook has completely changed.